What if, at this very moment, an entire universe is moving across the surface of your skin and you have absolutely no idea it exists? Every second, billions of microscopic creatures travel across the landscape of your body, building colonies, exploring tiny valleys inside your pores, and fighting invisible battles for survival. To you, your skin feels smooth, ordinary, and lifeless. But if we could shrink down far enough, the truth would be far more mysterious than anyone ever imagined. Decades ago, physicist Richard Feynman once suggested that the smallest scales of reality might contain entire worlds waiting to be explored. He imagined a future where humans could look deeper into the microscopic universe and discover secrets hidden in spaces far smaller than anything visible to the human eye. But what if those hidden worlds were not somewhere far away in a laboratory experiment? What if they were already living directly on you? Imagine shrinking smaller and smaller, past the level of dust particles, past the level of individual cells, until the surface of human skin transforms into something completely different. What once looked flat and simple now becomes a vast and rugged terrain. Towering structures made from skin cells rise like massive cliffs. Deep valleys form between them, creating dark corridors where strange organisms move quietly through the shadows. Across this microscopic landscape, life begins to appear. Tiny glowing creatures move slowly along the surface, navigating the maze of cellular structures like explorers crossing an alien planet. Some travel alone, drifting through thin layers of moisture that coat the skin. Others gather in dense clusters around pores where nutrients and energy sources collect in small microscopic reservoirs. To these organisms, your skin is not just a surface, it is an entire planet. Hair follicles become deep underground tunnels stretching far beneath the surface. Pores resemble massive cave entrances leading into complex hidden environments. In these dark spaces, entire colonies of microorganisms live, communicate, and adapt to the constantly changing conditions of their world. But this tiny civilization is not peaceful. Because among the harmless organisms moving across the terrain, there are hunters. Predatory microbes drift silently through the microscopic landscape, searching for weaker organisms to consume. Invisible battles happen every second, wars so small that billions of them could occur without a single human ever noticing. And yet, the most mysterious part of this hidden world is not the creatures themselves. It is the strange patterns they follow. Across the surface of the skin, glowing signals begin to appear between clusters of organisms. Certain groups move in synchronized patterns, forming organized pathways that stretch between pores and follicles. It almost looks as if these microscopic life forms are not just surviving randomly. They are organizing. As we move deeper into one of the skin's microscopic valleys, something even more surprising begins to emerge. Beneath the surface layers, faint glowing structures appear within the darkness of a pore. The deeper we travel, the more these structures begin to resemble something extraordinary. Something that should not exist at this scale. Because hidden inside this tiny opening on the surface of your skin, there may be the beginning of a microscopic civilization. As we descend deeper into the opening of the pore, the environment changes dramatically. What once looked like a simple dot on the surface of human skin now expands into a massive cavernous structure. The walls of the pore stretch upward like enormous cliffs made of layered skin cells, each one forming ridges and terraces that spiral down into darkness. Thin streams of moisture slowly slide along these walls, creating reflective surfaces that shimmer faintly in the dim light of the microscopic world. For the tiny organisms living here, this liquid is more than just water. It is a river system, carrying nutrients and microscopic particles through the tunnels beneath the skin. Movement begins to appear everywhere. Clusters of tiny organisms gather along the walls of the pore, forming communities that cling to the surface like glowing cities suspended along steep cliffs. Some of them attach themselves to the walls permanently, building thin protective layers around their bodies. Others move freely through the environment, drifting along the streams of moisture as they travel between different parts of the pore. The deeper we explore, the clearer it becomes that this is not random activity. Pathways begin to form across the walls of the pore. Groups of organisms move along the same routes repeatedly, creating microscopic trails that connect one colony to another. The traffic of these creatures never seems to stop. They move constantly, transporting tiny particles of nutrients, repairing damaged structures, and maintaining the delicate balance that allows their hidden world to survive. Further down the tunnel, the walls widen into a larger chamber where the activity becomes even more intense. Hundreds of organisms gather in this area, forming thick layers that cover nearly every surface of the chamber. Their bodies glow faintly as they communicate through tiny chemical signals released into the surrounding moisture. Each signal spreads through the liquid like a whisper, guiding the movements of the creatures nearby. From above, this chamber would look like a living city. Some organisms appear to act like builders, attaching particles of dead skin cells together to create protective layers along the chamber walls. Others move through the environment more aggressively, consuming weaker organisms that drift too close to their territory. It is a complete ecosystem. But as the activity continues, something unusual begins to happen near the entrance of the pore. A sudden disturbance travels across the surface of the skin above. To humans, it would feel like nothing more than a simple touch or movement, but inside this microscopic world, the effect is enormous. The walls of the pore tremble. Small particles break loose from the upper layers of the skin and begin falling downward through the chamber like massive boulders crashing into the microscopic city below. The streams of moisture suddenly shift direction, creating strong currents that push organisms away from their normal pathways. The entire environment becomes unstable within seconds. Creatures scatter across the chamber, trying to hold onto the walls as the flow of liquid sweeps through the tunnel. Colonies that had been carefully built along the pore walls begin to break apart, sending fragments of living organisms drifting through the currents. But the disturbance above the surface is only the beginning, because something new has just entered the microscopic world of the skin. A large foreign organism slowly slides down along the walls of the pore, carried by the sudden flow of moisture. Its shape is different from anything the inhabitants of this world have seen before. Its body stretches outward with thin sensory tendrils searching through the environment. The moment it enters the chamber, the tiny civilization reacts instantly. The glowing organisms begin to retreat deeper into the tunnels beneath the pore, abandoning their structures as they escape from the approaching invader. And whatever this creature is, it does not look like it came from their world at all. The strange organism continues sliding deeper into the chamber, carried by the slow current of moisture flowing through the pore. Its body stretches and contracts in a slow, controlled rhythm, as if it is carefully studying the unfamiliar environment around it. Long sensory tendrils extend outward from its surface, brushing against the walls of the pore and the drifting particles in the liquid. To the tiny inhabitants of this hidden world, the arrival of this creature feels like the appearance of a massive alien visitor. The glowing organisms scatter rapidly through the chamber, retreating into narrow tunnels carved between layers of skin cells. These passages are barely visible from the surface, but inside them lies an entire network of microscopic corridors where the creatures normally travel in safety. Now those same tunnels become escape routes. The invader drifts slowly through the center of the chamber, pausing whenever its sensory tendrils touch clusters of organisms still clinging to the walls. When it detects movement, its body suddenly contracts and lunges forward with surprising speed, capturing smaller microbes before they can escape into the deeper tunnels. Within seconds, the peaceful balance of this microscopic ecosystem begins to collapse. Groups of creatures rush through the tunnel network, sending chemical signals through the thin streams of liquid flowing beneath the skin. These signals spread rapidly, warning distant colonies that something dangerous has entered their world. The message is clear: an unknown predator has arrived. Deeper inside the tunnels, entire communities of microorganisms begin to react. Some retreat further into hidden chambers where nutrients are stored. Others gather along narrow passageways, forming defensive clusters that block the paths leading toward their settlements. For the first time, the microscopic inhabitants of this world appear organized in a way that resembles strategy. The tunnels themselves become a labyrinth of pathways twisting through the layers beneath the skin. Some passages lead back toward the surface, while others extend far deeper into darker regions where the environment becomes warmer and richer with organic particles. It is in these deeper regions that something unexpected begins to appear. As the glowing creatures retreat further into the underground network, faint structures begin to emerge along the tunnel walls. At first they look like simple clusters of organisms gathered together. But as we move closer, the shapes become more complex. Thin bridges made from strands of biological material stretch across gaps in the tunnels. Protective layers of microbes form living barriers along certain corridors. Even small chamber-like spaces appear where large groups of organisms gather together in dense formations. These structures do not look accidental, they look built. It begins to seem as if the microorganisms living beneath the surface of human skin have slowly created their own system of shelters and pathways over countless cycles of growth and adaptation. Meanwhile, the invading organism continues its slow advance through the main chamber above. Having consumed several of the slower microbes, it now begins moving toward one of the larger tunnel entrances where the glowing creatures disappeared. Its sensory tendrils stretch into the darkness of the passage, detecting faint traces of movement deeper inside. The predator pauses for a moment, then it enters the tunnel. Inside the underground network, the tiny civilization waits silently within the shadows of the deeper chambers. Chemical signals continue to pass rapidly through the colony, spreading warnings from one group to another, because they understand something that the invader does not. The tunnels beneath the skin are far larger than they appear from the outside. And somewhere deeper within this hidden world, there may be forces powerful enough to challenge even the most dangerous predator that enters their territory. The invading organism glides deeper into the narrow tunnel, its body adjusting effortlessly to the confined space. The walls of the passage are thick with layers of microorganisms that cling to the skin cells like living shields. As the creature moves forward, its sensory tendrils brush against these layers, causing ripples of chemical signals to spread rapidly through the colony. Every contact sends a warning deeper into the underground network. Far ahead in the darker chambers beneath the skin, the microscopic civilization begins to react. Streams of glowing microbes move quickly through the tunnels, gathering around key intersections where multiple pathways meet. Their movements are no longer random. They cluster together in precise patterns as if following instructions carried through invisible signals in the surrounding liquid. The tunnels beneath the skin form a complex maze. Some corridors are wide and smooth, shaped by the constant movement of moisture through the pore. Others twist sharply through narrow cracks between layers of skin cells, forming secret passages that only the smallest organisms can navigate. The invader continues forward, unaware of how vast this hidden world truly is. Behind it, the tunnels it passed through begin to change. Groups of microbes detach themselves from the walls and drift slowly into the passage, forming dense floating clusters that begin to close off certain routes. These living barriers are not strong enough to stop the predator directly, but they begin to reshape the environment, guiding the creature deeper into the maze. It is being directed. Further ahead, the tunnels suddenly widen into a large underground chamber where the temperature is slightly warmer and the flow of nutrients is stronger. The walls are covered with thick colonies of microorganisms that glow faintly with biochemical energy. This chamber is different from the others. Here, the density of life is enormous. Layers upon layers of microbial communities cover every surface, forming structures that resemble terraces built along the sides of a canyon. Streams of moisture flow slowly through the chamber, carrying nutrients to the organisms clinging to the walls. At the center of the chamber lies something even more unusual. A large spherical cluster of microbes pulses gently with rhythmic flashes of light. Each pulse spreads outward through the surrounding colonies, triggering small waves of movement across the chamber walls. The organisms nearby react immediately, adjusting their positions as if responding to a command. This structure appears to act like a communication hub for the entire underground ecosystem. Signals travel through it, coordinating the movements of countless microbes across the hidden network beneath the skin. As the invading organism approaches the entrance to this chamber, the signals intensify. The glowing sphere pulses faster, sending rapid waves of chemical messages through the tunnels. The entire microscopic civilization now knows exactly where the predator is. Inside the chamber, dense layers of microbes begin to rearrange themselves along the tunnel entrances. Thick biological barriers form across certain pathways, while other passages remain open, carefully guiding the invader toward the center of the chamber. The creature finally emerges from the tunnel into the open space. For the first time, it pauses. Its tendrils extend outward, sensing the enormous concentration of life surrounding it. The chamber walls glow faintly as thousands of microorganisms shift and react to its presence, but the invader cannot understand the signals moving through the colony. It does not realize that every movement it makes is now being studied, predicted, and slowly controlled by a hidden network of life that has existed beneath the surface of human skin for longer than anyone could imagine. The invading organism drifts slowly into the center of the chamber, surrounded on every side by dense layers of microbial life. Its long sensory tendrils stretch outward, brushing against the glowing colonies covering the walls. Each contact triggers waves of chemical signals that ripple through the entire ecosystem like silent alarms echoing across a hidden city. For a moment, everything becomes strangely calm. The creature floats in the chamber, scanning the environment around it. The liquid current slows slightly and the glowing microbes remain still along the walls, their faint light flickering gently like distant stars. To the invader, this stillness might feel like safety. But in reality, the microscopic civilization is watching. The large spherical cluster at the center of the chamber begins pulsing faster than before. Each pulse releases a burst of chemical messages that travel instantly through the surrounding colonies. The signals spread through the tunnels and chambers beneath the skin, reaching distant microbial communities hidden far away from the predator's reach. Every colony now understands the same message. The invader must be contained. Along the walls of the chamber, certain microbes begin to detach from their clusters. Instead of drifting randomly through the liquid, they gather together in thick floating layers. Gradually, these layers move inward, slowly surrounding the invading organism from multiple directions. The movement is subtle, almost invisible at first, but within minutes, the open space around the predator begins to shrink. The invader senses the change. Its tendrils flicker through the liquid, detecting the growing density of organisms around its body. It shifts slightly, attempting to move toward one of the tunnels it used to enter the chamber. But the pathway is no longer open. The entrance it came through is now filled with thick microbial layers that cling together like a living wall. Other tunnels begin closing in the same way as colonies seal themselves together to block escape routes. The predator is no longer exploring. It is trapped inside the chamber. At first, the creature reacts slowly, probing the barrier with its tendrils. But when it pushes against the dense microbial wall, the colony responds instantly. Thousands of organisms tighten their hold on each other, forming a stronger biological structure that resists the pressure. The invader strikes again, this time with greater force. Its body lunges forward, attempting to tear through the living barrier. A small section of microbes breaks apart under the attack, drifting into the liquid like scattered debris. But before the predator can push further, the surrounding colonies react. The glowing sphere at the center of the chamber releases another powerful signal. Instantly, the broken barrier repairs itself as new microbes rush forward to fill the gap. The chamber begins to glow brighter. Across the walls, thousands of organisms pulse in synchronized patterns, strengthening their connections with each other. The entire microbial community now behaves like a single coordinated structure, responding to every movement the predator makes. The invader senses the growing resistance. Its tendrils twitch rapidly, detecting the increasing density of microorganisms closing around its body. The open liquid space that once surrounded it is shrinking with every passing moment. For the first time since entering the hidden world beneath the skin, the predator appears uncertain, because the tiny organisms it expected to hunt are no longer acting like prey. They are acting like an army. Inside the glowing chamber, the pressure around the invading organism continues to increase. The floating layers of microorganisms tighten their formation, slowly closing the remaining space around the predator. What once looked like scattered colonies now behave like a single living structure, each microbe connected through an invisible network of signals flowing through the liquid environment. The invader senses the change immediately. Its tendrils move faster, striking outward in multiple directions as it tries to force a path through the surrounding microbial wall. Each strike tears apart clusters of smaller organisms, sending fragments drifting into the chamber like microscopic debris. For a moment, it seems like the predator might break free. But the response from the hidden civilization is immediate. The glowing sphere at the center of the chamber begins pulsing at an even faster rhythm. Each pulse spreads across the chamber walls in waves of faint light. The signals move through every colony attached to the surface of the skin cells, guiding their reactions with perfect coordination. Wherever the predator tears a gap in the barrier, thousands of new microbes rush forward to replace the ones that were destroyed. The living wall rebuilds itself again and again, stronger each time. The chamber now looks less like a natural environment and more like a carefully controlled containment zone. The invader begins moving more aggressively. Its body expands and contracts as it pushes through the thick microbial layers, trying to create enough force to break through the defense surrounding it. But the more it struggles, the stronger the colony becomes. Deep within the surrounding tunnels, distant microbial communities receive continuous signals from the glowing sphere. In response, streams of microorganisms begin flowing toward the chamber from every direction. They travel along the hidden corridors beneath the skin like reinforcements arriving from faraway settlements. The population inside the chamber rapidly grows. Layer after layer of microorganisms gathers around the predator, forming dense living structures that press inward from all sides. The remaining open liquid space shrinks even further, forcing the invader to remain trapped in the center. Then something unexpected begins to happen. The microbes closest to the predator start releasing faint glowing substances into the surrounding liquid. These chemical clouds spread slowly through the chamber, drifting toward the invader's body. At first, the predator continues fighting against the barrier, unaware of the subtle change in its environment. But within moments, its movements begin to slow. The chemical substances released by the colony start affecting the invader's surface membrane. Its tendrils move less frequently, and its body contractions become weaker as the surrounding liquid fills with microscopic defensive compounds produced by the colony. This is not just a physical defense, it is a biochemical attack. The hidden civilization beneath the skin is using its collective biology as a weapon. The glowing sphere continues pulsing steadily, coordinating the release of these chemical signals with precise timing. Every group of microorganisms releases their compounds in waves, gradually increasing the concentration surrounding the predator. The invader senses the change too late. Its tendrils retract slightly, and its body struggles to maintain its shape as the chemical environment around it becomes more hostile. The movements that once looked powerful and controlled now appear slower and less coordinated. The chamber grows brighter as thousands of microbes pulse together in synchronized patterns. The tiny civilization is no longer simply defending its territory. It is executing a carefully organized strategy to neutralize the threat that entered their world. The chamber beneath the skin now glows with an intense biological light. Waves of chemical signals continue spreading through the dense microbial colonies, guiding every movement with extraordinary precision. The invading organism remains trapped in the center, its once powerful movements slowing under the growing influence of the defensive compounds filling the liquid around it. But the microscopic civilization is not finished. deep inside the chamber, the glowing sphere begins to transform. Its pulses grow stronger, sending brighter flashes of light across the surrounding colonies. Each pulse travels outward through the interconnected microbes like a command moving through an enormous living network. The entire underground ecosystem responds. Along the walls of the chamber, thick microbial layers begin shifting their positions. Sections of the colony detach from the surface and slowly drift inward, forming new structures around the predator. These structures resemble curved biological barriers, almost like massive living arms extending from the walls toward the center of the chamber. The invader senses the movement. Even in its weakened state, its tendrils stretch outward, striking at the approaching structures. Each strike breaks apart clusters of microbes, scattering them into the liquid. But the damage is temporary. The colony quickly rebuilds itself, reforming the barriers again and again. The glowing sphere pulses faster. With every pulse, thousands of microorganisms release additional chemical signals that strengthen the connections between their bodies. The living barriers begin to tighten their formation, slowly wrapping around the predator from multiple directions. It is a containment system created entirely from living organisms. The invader attempts one final aggressive movement, contracting its body and pushing outward with sudden force. For a moment, the microbial barriers bend under the pressure. The chamber trembles slightly as waves of liquid ripple through the surrounding colonies, but the defense holds. The walls of microbes press inward again, stronger than before. Reinforcements from the tunnels continue arriving, adding layer after layer to the living structure surrounding the predator. The chemical clouds inside the chamber grow denser. The predator's movements slow even further. Its tendrils now drift weakly through the liquid, no longer striking with the same precision. The defensive compounds produced by the colony have begun disrupting the biological systems that control its movement. Above the chamber, faint vibrations from the surface of the skin travel down through the pore and into the underground tunnels. To humans, these movements might simply be the motion of a hand brushing against the skin or a shift in body temperature. But within the microscopic world, the vibrations feel like distant tremors shaking the terrain. The glowing sphere adjusts its pulses instantly, compensating for the changing conditions. The microbial colonies remain perfectly coordinated, adapting their formation to maintain control over the trapped invader. Now the living barriers begin closing completely. The curved microbial structures meet each other around the predator's body, forming a dense biological cage. Only small gaps remain where liquid currents continue to flow slowly through the chamber. Inside this cage, the invading organism drifts weakly, surrounded by millions of tiny life forms working together as one enormous defense system. The hidden civilization beneath the skin has nearly completed its strategy. But as the glowing sphere sends another powerful pulse through the colony, something unexpected begins to happen inside the predator's body. A faint internal movement appears beneath its outer membrane, as if the creature still holds one final surprise that the microscopic defenders have not yet seen. Inside the biological cage, the trapped organism drifts slowly in the dense liquid environment. Its movements are now weak and irregular, and the long sensory tendrils that once searched the chamber aggressively now float almost motionless around its body. The chemical compounds released by the microbial colony have clearly weakened the invader, yet something unusual begins to appear beneath its surface. The outer membrane of the creature shifts slightly, forming slow ripples that move across its body. At first, the movement seems like a simple reaction to the surrounding chemicals. But as the seconds pass, the ripples grow stronger, spreading from the center of the organism toward its outer edges. The glowing microbes surrounding the cage detect the change immediately. Signals flash across the colony walls as the central communication sphere releases another sequence of pulses. The entire microbial network becomes alert again, adjusting its formation as it monitors the strange behavior of the trapped invader. Inside the cage, the predator suddenly contracts. Its body compresses inward, pulling its tendrils tightly against its surface. For a brief moment, everything becomes still, as if the creature is gathering the last of its remaining energy. Then the membrane expands sharply. A powerful wave pushes outward from the organism's body, sending a ripple through the surrounding liquid. The microbial cage trembles as the force spreads through the dense layers of organisms forming the barrier. Some of the outer microbial layers break apart under the sudden pressure, drifting into the chamber like scattered fragments. The invader is trying to escape. But the civilization beneath the skin reacts instantly. Reinforcement colonies surge forward from the chamber walls, filling the damaged areas of the barrier. Thousands of microorganisms attach themselves together again, sealing the gaps created by the sudden expansion. The glowing sphere pulses rapidly, sending urgent signals across the colony. The microbes closest to the predator begin releasing even stronger chemical compounds into the liquid environment. The concentration around the creature rises quickly, creating a dense cloud of defensive molecules that surround its body from every direction. Inside the cage, the invader attempts another expansion. Its membrane stretches outward again, pushing against the microbial walls with visible force. But this time, the response from the colony is stronger and faster. The living barrier compresses inward, absorbing the pressure while additional microbes lock themselves together to reinforce the structure. The chamber fills with flickering pulses of light as the colony communicates at extraordinary speed. The predator's movements begin to slow once more. The chemical cloud around its body thickens, interfering with the biological systems that allow it to generate the powerful expansions needed to break free. Its membrane contracts again, but this time the movement is weaker than before. The microscopic civilization tightens its control. The living cage grows denser, layer after layer of microorganisms sealing every possible opening. The once powerful invader now floats in the center of an enormous collective organism made of millions of tiny defenders working together as a single entity. But the glowing communication sphere continues pulsing cautiously, because even though the predator is weakening, the signals moving through the colony suggest something important. The creature is not yet completely defeated. The chamber remains tense, filled with steady pulses of light from the central communication sphere. The invading organism floats inside the dense biological cage, its movements reduced to slow, irregular shifts. The surrounding chemical environment continues to weaken it, but the colony does not relax. Every microbe stays locked in formation, maintaining the pressure around the predator. The sphere emits a new pattern of signals. This time, the pulses are different. Instead of accelerating defensively, they spread outward in coordinated waves across the entire underground network. The signals travel through distant tunnels, reaching colonies far from the central chamber beneath the skin. The hidden civilization is mobilizing on a larger scale. Along the tunnel walls, microbes begin forming extended structures that connect multiple chambers together. These biological bridges strengthen the network, ensuring that if the predator attempts to escape into another passage, it will encounter the same coordinated defense. The cage around the invader slowly shifts position. Rather than simply compressing inward, the colony begins guiding the creature toward a specific section of the chamber. The microbial layers subtly adjust their density, steering the predator away from weaker regions and toward the center, where the communication sphere continues to pulse steadily. The invader senses the change. Though weakened, it attempts to move toward the edge of the cage. Its tendrils extend, probing for structural weaknesses in the living barrier. But wherever it pushes, the colony responds instantly, thickening the microbial layers and redirecting its movement back toward the center. The chamber now functions like a controlled environment. Liquid currents inside the chamber are gradually stabilized by the microbial formations. Areas of turbulence created by the invader's movements are dampened as surrounding colonies adjust their density, absorbing and redistributing the energy within the fluid. The glowing sphere increases its rhythmic pulses again. With each pulse, defensive compounds are released in carefully measured waves. Instead of overwhelming the entire chamber, the compounds concentrate directly around the invader's body, maintaining pressure while preventing unnecessary disruption to the rest of the ecosystem. This precision shows intelligence at work. The microscopic civilization beneath the skin is not acting randomly. It is responding with calculated coordination, adapting its strategy based on the invader's behavior. Inside the cage, the predator's membrane shows signs of fatigue. Its previous attempts at explosive expansion are now weaker and slower. The chemical environment has significantly reduced its ability to generate force. The colony detects this immediately. Rather than attacking aggressively, the microbes begin transitioning to a containment phase. The cage tightens gradually, but with stability rather than force. The goal is no longer destruction through pressure alone, but complete isolation. The sphere's pulses slow into a steady rhythm. Across the tunnels, distant colonies confirm through chemical signals that reinforcements have secured surrounding areas. The underground network beneath the skin is now fully aware of the threat's location and status. For the first time since the invasion began, the microscopic civilization appears confident. The predator remains contained within the chamber, surrounded by millions of cooperating organisms. But as the pulses echo through the tunnels, a final realization spreads across the network. Containment is only temporary unless the system can fully neutralize the threat, and somewhere inside the weakening organism, a last hidden mechanism may still be active. Inside the chamber, the biological cage holds steady. The invading organism floats at the center, surrounded by dense layers of microorganisms working together in perfect synchronization. The communication sphere continues to pulse, but now its rhythm is calm and controlled, signaling that the colony has transitioned from emergency defense to long-term stabilization. Yet the hidden network beneath the skin is still alert. Chemical sensors spread throughout the tunnels detect subtle changes in the surrounding liquid. The colony monitors temperature shifts, nutrient levels, and microcurrents flowing through the pore. Every fluctuation is analyzed through rapid signaling between colonies, ensuring that no unexpected movement goes unnoticed. Inside the cage, the predator shows minimal activity. Its membrane no longer expands aggressively. Instead, it appears to be undergoing internal adjustments, slowly adapting to the chemical environment around it. The defensive compounds remain concentrated, preventing recovery, but the colony avoids overexertion. Maintaining balance is now the priority. The sphere emits a structured sequence of pulses. These signals travel outward through branching tunnels, instructing distant microbial communities to return to normal distribution patterns. Reinforcement clusters begin spreading back across the chamber walls, restoring the ecosystem's density to stable levels while keeping the cage intact. The living barrier remains strong. Microbes along the inner surface of the cage form tight interlocking structures, creating layers that prevent the invader from regaining momentum. Meanwhile, outer colonies maintain communication pathways, ensuring rapid response if any new disturbance occurs. The chamber itself begins to return to equilibrium. Liquid currents stabilize and fragmented microbial clusters reattach to the walls. The environment no longer trembles. The underground network beneath the skin is regaining its structured organization. Within the cage, the invader attempts a final subtle movement. Instead of expanding, it releases a small internal wave, barely detectable by the colony. The wave spreads through the surrounding liquid, testing the density of the microbial barrier. But the colony's sensors detect this instantly. The communication sphere adjusts its pulse frequency slightly. In response, the microbes tighten their interconnections just enough to counter the internal wave without causing instability. The system demonstrates remarkable adaptability, reacting precisely rather than excessively. The predator's energy reserves appear nearly depleted. Its tendrils remain mostly retracted, and its movement is limited to slow drifting within the center of the cage. The defensive compounds continue to circulate around it, maintaining chemical pressure that prevents recovery. Across the chamber, glowing signals synchronize once more. This time, the pulses represent confirmation rather than urgency. The The network acknowledges that the immediate threat has been neutralized within this pore-level environment. But beneath the surface, the larger microscopic universe continues to exist. Other pores, other tunnels, other colonies remain active across the vast landscape of human skin. Each region operates independently yet remains connected through complex biochemical communication systems. The invasion in this chamber may be controlled, but the hidden world is enormous. And within it, countless interactions continue every second, unseen by human eyes, forming a dynamic microscopic universe that lives quietly across the surface of the body. The civilization beneath the skin survives, for now. The chamber is now stable, but the microscopic civilization does not fully relax. Even in victory, the colony maintains structured formation around the central cage, ensuring that the invading organism remains completely isolated. The communication sphere continues its steady pulse, no longer urgent, but carefully monitoring every chemical and physical signal within the environment. Inside the living barrier, the predator floats almost motionless. Its earlier attempts to escape have left it weakened and unable to generate significant force. The dense chemical compounds in the liquid continue interfering with its internal systems, preventing recovery. The microbial cage remains intact, layered with tightly connected organisms forming a resilient biological structure. Reinforcement colonies that once rushed toward the chamber now return to their original positions along the tunnel network. They reattach to the walls, restoring the natural density of the ecosystem beneath the skin. The hidden pathways regain their balance, with microbes once again spreading evenly across the terrain. The chamber begins to resemble its original state. Liquid currents move gently instead of turbulently. The glowing sphere reduces its pulse intensity, shifting from defensive coordination to long-term regulatory signaling. The entire network transitions into maintenance mode. But something subtle changes in the surrounding environment. Above the pore, on the surface of the skin, external conditions shift slightly. A minor movement, perhaps a touch, temperature variation, or airflow, causes faint vibrations to travel downward through the layers of cells. The microbial network detects this instantly. Signals pass through the tunnels, confirming that no new invader has entered the chamber. The colony verifies stability across adjacent regions. Each nearby pore is monitored through chemical communication channels, forming a protective web across the skin's surface. Inside the cage, the invading organism attempts one final internal adjustment. This time, instead of expansion or force, it begins a slow contraction, reducing its activity significantly. The colony interprets this as a decline in threat level. However, the microbes remain cautious, maintaining containment until complete neutralization is confirmed. The glowing sphere sends a final structured sequence of pulses. These signals instruct the surrounding colonies to gradually reinforce the cage with stable layers rather than aggressive compression. The objective shifts from active defense to permanent isolation within the chamber. Over time, the barrier becomes integrated into the environment itself. The invader is no longer fighting the colony. It is fully surrounded, chemically suppressed, and structurally confined within the living network beneath the skin. The microscopic civilization resumes normal function. Tunnels reopen for routine traffic. Nutrient flows return to standard patterns. Microbial communities continue their daily cycles of growth, communication, and adaptation. From a human perspective, nothing unusual is happening. The skin appears normal, smooth, ordinary. But beneath it, an entire universe has just demonstrated intelligence, coordination, and survival strategy at a scale beyond imagination. The hidden world continues to exist across every inch of the body, and somewhere in another pore, another tunnel, another chamber, life is always active. Because in the microscopic universe, silence does not mean emptiness. It means that the story is still unfolding. The underground network beneath the skin has fully transitioned back to equilibrium. The communication sphere now emits gentle pulses, no longer signaling emergency, but maintaining steady coordination across the chamber. The invading organism remains completely contained within the biological cage, its activity reduced to minimal internal movement. The defensive compounds continue to circulate, ensuring long-term stability and preventing any possibility of resurgence. The microscopic civilization has entered a new phase. Instead of focusing on defense, the colonies begin reinforcing structural integrity across the entire pore system. Microbial layers along the tunnel walls thicken slightly, not to attack, but to strengthen the natural architecture of their environment. The living network beneath the skin is resilient, adaptable, and continuously self-organizing. Signals travel through interconnected tunnels, confirming that nearby regions remain stable. Other pores across the surface of the skin operate independently, yet they share information through biochemical communication pathways. This creates a vast, invisible ecosystem stretching across the entire body. Each area responds to local conditions. Temperature changes, moisture levels, and external contact are constantly monitored. The microorganisms adjust their density, distribution, and chemical output in response to these subtle variations. It is a dynamic universe, balancing cooperation and competition at microscopic scales. Inside the chamber, the invader shows no further aggressive expansion. Its internal activity appears suppressed, and its ability to disrupt the environment has been neutralized. The living cage remains intact, integrated into the structure of the chamber itself. Over time, the microbial barrier becomes indistinguishable from the surrounding colonies. What was once a defensive formation now blends seamlessly into the ecosystem, becoming part of the natural landscape beneath the skin. The communication sphere slows its pulses further, signaling that the system has achieved long-term containment and stability. From the outside world, the surface of the skin shows no visible evidence of the intense microscopic events that occurred within. To human eyes, it remains simple and ordinary. But beneath that surface lies a universe of extraordinary complexity. Billions of microorganisms live, communicate, build, compete, and cooperate every second. They form networks, defend territories, and maintain balance through sophisticated biochemical systems. This hidden civilization exists without recognition, yet it plays a vital role in maintaining the health and stability of the body. The invasion has demonstrated something profound. Even at the smallest scales, life organizes itself into systems capable of defense and adaptation. The microscopic world is not random chaos. It is structured, responsive, and constantly evolving. As the chamber settles completely, the glowing sphere emits one final calm pulse. The network acknowledges stability. The invader remains isolated, and the colony continues its quiet existence beneath the skin. Tunnels stretch across the landscape. Colonies pulse gently, signals flow steadily. The hidden universe endures, and somewhere across countless pores and microscopic chambers, similar stories unfold every moment. Invisible worlds, silent civilizations living beneath the surface. This is the MicroMystery Universe.